Hey, Pipe Pants, welcome back to Carlo Perza MMA. Today, I am talking with UFC fighter. He is the gifted one. He is Mr. Gabe Green. Gabe, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Oh, got breath in my lungs, so not much to complain about.
Absolutely, man. You've been in the world of combat sports for quite a long time, man. And I think a lot of people don't realize is at one point, man, this stuff was like the wild, wild west. It was called human cockfighting at one time. People didn't think this was like a legitimate sport. It's something that's so mainstream and culturally accepted now. You've been doing this since past 2014, so at least 10 years now. When you first got into this, do you remember fighting the early days, any time in bars, barns, outside, mystery opponents? Do you have anything crazy?
Nah, nothing too crazy. 2014 was it was already kind of it started to be a lot more I get like mainstream. Like now it's like super mainstream, but 2014 was kind of the 2010s in general. That's like when things changed a lot. The generation right before me is like all the guys that like when I started training at the gym, I was like 21, and the stories of those guys that were like already professional when I first started my amateur career, those like they're going down to Mexico and fighting for like $3 and like in a bar behind a bar somewhere and like all kinds of crazy stuff like that. So I just missed it. I just missed it.
In 2014, to me, that was a big year in combat sports. It's really one of the first years we saw the rise of Conor McGregor. Obviously, Conor McGregor, I think, revolutionized mixed martial arts and the way of introducing the personality and entertainment side of things to the next level. I think 15, 20 years ago, to make it in the UFC, I think it was really on your skill set. Now, I mean, you're seeing guys put on straight characters. They're facades. They're people they're not because they know it's going to give them title shots. They're going to make more money. They're going to get on bigger shows. How do you think personality and entertainment has affected mixed martial arts?
I mean, I think that if you can somehow make yourself bigger than the brand that you're competing for, I mean, it's definitely the way to go. Like it's only going to be great for you. Like McGregor became like bigger than the UFC, and that's huge for him because he was able to separate himself from it, and it because he was so high and so well known and just like regarded, people just kind of flocked to him, and he brought eyes into the UFC. So when you're doing that, then the UFC loves you. Um, I mean, anywhere you're at, right? If you're a part of any promotion, even if the promotion is huge, if you're a name that's bigger than that promotion, all you do is just bring more people into it, right? So the promotion's just going to be a big fan of you for that. And I mean, I'm not a big fan of not being you though. Like I'm pretty sure Connor is Connor. He seems to genuinely be that person. It's not much of a character. When guys are phony though, and they're like trying to be someone they're not, I think that's a little weird. Um, some guys act better than the other guys. So I mean that helps if you're a good actor at least, but other guys just come off as super cringy. I would say just be yourself is the best way to be personally. But I mean, yeah, you're rewarded for being able to just have a giant personality. So I mean, if all you're trying to do is make a bunch of money, then and that's what most people are trying to do. They're trying to make a bunch of money, so you can't fault them for trying to do it.
No, absolutely. And I think a big byproduct of this whole entertainment entertainment personality driven era is something called the casual fans. These are the people, they like to go to B-dubs and get drunk, they watch the fights, they sit in the cheap seats, they like to yell twist them, the what, they have all these different takes. Overall, what do you think of this type of fan?
Um, I mean, at the end of the day, they're people who are watching, and if they're people who are watching, they're people that kind of help me get paid. So I mean, hey, a fan's a fan. I'll take them.
Absolutely. I think the casuals, they look at the big names in the sport. They look at the McGregors, the Habibs, the Masvidals, and they're like, wow, what a life. They see the fame, the glory of it. Being a fighter is the greatest life ever. Little do they know, battling it out on the regional scene to get there. You're losing money. You have a 9 to 5 job most of the time. Throw a wife in there, throw kids in there. Pay to train, miss birthdays, Thanksgivings, Easters, time with your family, just for the opportunity to fight a show like the UFC. And even when you get to the UFC, you're not making NFL money quite yet. You've been doing it for such a long time. What's made you keep going, keep punching, kicking forward?
Yeah, I mean, I just love to fight. That's it. If and I tell people all the time that they want to get into fighting, and I'm like, well, why? Why do you want to fight? You know? And if they say for fortune or fame, I'm like, dude, you're fighting for the absolute wrong reason. I don't know what it is, but everyone just thinks. And don't get me wrong, like I'm not saying that anyone can't just get to the UFC. You know, if you bust your butt and try your hardest and everything like that, but the reality is the vast majority are not gonna make it to the UFC. The vast majority of people who walk into MMA gyms never even compete. Then an even smaller group of those guys that compete amateur win like an amateur belt, and then an even smaller portion of those people go pro. Then an even smaller portion of those people become like a small regional, champion, and then even smaller portion of that like reach the UFC. And like then just to get that call from the UFC, not only do you have to have skills, but you got to be at the right place at the right time. It's like God really has to be on your side. Like you're in the UFC because God was like, yeah, I'm gonna put him in there for whichever reason. You know, it's not just about it's not you at all. It's just like it's just kind of how the dice rolls and like the way that God's plan for your life was. And then once you get to the UFC, you're full of all these other people that are supposed to be there that are really, really good at this thing where it's like a fight, so your body's getting all hurt, and then you get there and then like not many people even have a winning career. I think the last time I heard the statistic, the average life of a UFC fighter is like 1.5 fights or something like that. Or yeah, I think it's like 1.5 fights, it might have been 2 fights and 1.5 years, something like that. But it's like most guys that get into the UFC, they're in and then they're out, and then that's all it is. And then a lot of guys try to get back afterwards, and not a lot of them get make that happen either. Sometimes they do though. I mean, look at like Moreno comes back and he's champion, so it's not like you can't do it. But even then, I doubt Moreno's just chasing a bag the whole time. He's doing it because he actually loves. He's doing it for the love of the game. And that's why I do it. I do it just because I love to fight. Like you said, I was in the beginning of my career going to school full time, working a job, and training as much as I could, and then I was so happy to just finish school and graduate so that I didn't have to do that anymore. And I'm like, all right, so that's I don't have homework sick, like my life gets a little easier. And I'm doing all that for when you're an amateur, you're not getting paid anything. I think my first pro fight I made with the win bonus $1,200. So it's like, yeah, we're doing it for, and then you got to pay your manager, you got to pay your coaches, you got to divvy up all that stuff. So you're not making anything, and it's like, well, there's a ton of people who go do it anyways, like me, and we do it because we love to fight, and a lot of guys do it because they don't love to fight, but they like to compete. There's a lot of guys that are just kind of athletes, and I think that's as the sport's grown bigger and bigger, the like real fighter has kind of gone away a little bit as fighting's become more and more mainstream, and it's kind of taken the shift over to more guys that are just really athletic and explosive and not necessarily have that like real fight in them. And then you see stuff though, like when push really comes to shove, and that might be why once they make it to the UFC and they're fighting these guys that are elite caliber, and that like dog has to come out of them in order to win. A lot of them they don't have that because they're not real fighters. They just are really good athletes.
My personal opinion, after interviewing a bunch of you guys, one thing I see from the guys who maybe classify as real fighters, it's more than just a fight to get ready for a fight. It's the fight to achieve financial freedom. It's the fight to avoid clocking in at 9 o'clock and clocking out at 5 p.m. It's the fight to live on your own terms, not to go into the societal norms of working this 9 to 5 job, essentially living life on your own terms and dictating what you want to do and chase your dreams. For you, was that a big part of your career?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely fighting for. Besides me, just actually enjoying pitting my skills against someone else's. I yeah, the idea of a 9 to 5 absolutely like drives me crazy. I do not want to do that ever in my whole life. I like after I retire from fighting, I need to make sure I have something set up where I never have to clock in ever. I'm trying to make moves currently to make sure that doesn't happen. And just because, yeah, it's not for everybody, and yeah, it's almost gives me nightmares trying to think like, oh man, that's a life that is possible. I'm like, no, I'm staying as far away from that as possible.
Something that I'm really starting to see in this day and age is mixed martial arts turning into a business. And I mean, it's all different aspects. When you're on the regional scene, who are you going to fight? That's a business decision. Who are you going to be doing interviews? Business decision. Obviously, your management, business decision. All these different things now are leaned to where this is a business. Is this something that you've seen along the way?
Yeah, and I think with social media becoming more and more like a necessity almost in life too, or your business and running the things you're trying to run, and that comes with the personality and the character aspect earlier that we were talking about. You can even there's guys on the regional scene that have like on Instagram way more followers than me. Like there's guys with like hundreds of thousands because they're just marketing themselves huge. And with that comes things that allow them to fund their career and make moves that like that I don't even have. And I'm in the UFC. There's guys with, yeah, like I think I got like my wife told me today because she checks more than I do. She's like, "You got 17,000 on Instagram. I'm all sick. That's cool." And but there's guys that with like hundreds of thousands, 500,000 followers who are fighting amateur, not even professional yet. And so, and it's great. Like I'm not like I'm a hater or anything. It's so great for them because they're when you have that kind of following, you're like for advertisement and stuff like that, businesses are more willing to sponsor you and doing all that stuff. So it helps them not have to do that 9 to 5 either. If that's really what their whole thing, if they don't want to be trapped and be, like another a cog in the system, that's it's extremely freeing and it's awesome that they can do that.
I think one thing we're seeing in mixed martial arts is how many regional promotions there are now. I mean, it's crazy. If you have UFC Fight Pass, I mean, you can literally watch a regional fight like 4 or 5 days of the week now. It's to that point. And, I think one thing we're seeing, maybe a negative of that, is there's regional promotions out there who pick their favorites and handpick them opponents and not necessarily give them easy opponents, but very favorable matchups. Now you're seeing guys get into the UFC 10, 11 and 0, 22, 23 years old. They're out of there after their first 3 fights because they didn't fight anyone even close to competition. How do you think that's impacting the landscape of MMA?
Yeah, no, I mean, because everybody's just trying to get to the UFC and they want to go fight guys that are tough when they actually get a little bit of a bigger page. Because like, the regional scene is gonna like max out how much you're getting paid, like around 2,500, like 3,000, like on the higher end side. So when your first contract with the UFC is like 10 and 10 usually, like that's the standard. So it's substantially bigger, right? And so people are thinking, I'm just gonna fight the tough guys when I actually get paid. But because of that, like you said, they're getting their whole career just like spoon fed fights, and then all of a sudden, they're smashing all these guys, and then they get to fight someone who's real, and all of a sudden they're not ready. And like I was saying earlier too, like a lot of these guys are just real athletic and they think that they're unstoppable, and then they've never really had to dig deep and fight real hard and really ask themselves if they're a fighter. Like those have that deep conversation. Like, do I have what it takes to bite down and just go for it? And a lot of guys aren't getting tested like that. And there's only really one way to know if you have that in you or not, and that's if you've been through that fire. So, yeah, like a lot of guys are kind of just skipping out a very important step. My coach didn't do that with me. Like we just took every fight that we could. If you look at um, the record of the guys that I fought, like their wins to loss ratios is like the guys that I beat don't really lose to other people. And it prepared me for when I got to the UFC. I was ready for the people who were in front of me.
Absolutely. I think really characteristic that any fighter needs to have is the only way I can say it is they have that dog in them. You have to have, that time when the fight's tough. You need to have that grit. You have to have that heart. And one thing that I'm starting to see is the mental side of things of being a fighter is extremely important. Do you feel that fighting is more mental than is physical?
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather go into a fight with a broken arm and a mental status that was like 100%. I'm all like geared up versus going in with a body that's 100% and a mind that doesn't want to be in there. It's because I mean, you're getting locked into a cage with someone who's trying to hurt you. If you're not mentally there, you're gonna get hurt. You
Absolutely.
better you better find your mind pretty fast.
Absolutely. Before your time in the UFC, you had the opportunity to fight in Bellator, one of those contests that really stick out to me. Your win over Chris Padilla, obviously a guy who's now in the UFC doing big things, came up big yesterday. You're able to take him out there, first round submission. Walk me through that victory.
It's 2018, I think.
Yep.
2017. This is a long time ago, but and I think it was the second round. Yeah, got him with the rear naked choke. I mean, I just remember I got it, man. It was a long time ago. But you mean, and I've trained with him since. We both were at CMMA and stuff like that. Taco's a great guy. He actually was the person who replaced me for the Yon Top fight. Like I was just saying, like it's like uh, God's plan for anyone to get in the UFC. So crazy enough, when they offered me Yon Top, the day my management called me to offer the fight, I had just like it wasn't like a bad tear, but I hurt my calf that day, and it was like I think it was 8 weeks out, and I prayed about it, and I was like, man, should I take this fight or not? I just got hurt, but my weight was pretty good and everything like that, so I sat down, I prayed about it, and everything in my being was saying, yeah, take the fight, right? So I end up taking the fight, and then we go through camp and everything. And then I think 2 weeks out, I have another injury, and I hurt my leg. So I had to pull out completely. I end up my knee got messed up. Um, Good now. I've done all the rehab to fix it now, but it took some time. But yeah, so I pulled out right before the fight due to that second injury, and Taco was getting ready for another like a title fight, so he was in really good shape. And then his coaches were already going to be at the event, and since now it's short notice, usually the UFC just goes looks for someone on the regional scene or something like that because most guys that are already in the UFC don't want to risk their what's it called their career. They don't want their if they don't want the risk a loss on their contract because we only get so many fights or whatever. So they're like, I'm not going to take a short minute fight, and that's why so many guys pop in last minute because they're like, my shot's a shot. I'm gonna take it. They're hungry. Um, so because I was like, I'm gonna decide to take this fight, and then I got hurt later. He was the one who was the perfect person to jump in. And it's just crazy how things will work. Because if I would have sat down and been like, my calf is messed up right now. I don't know if I'm gonna make the fight. Let me I just like declined that fight. They would have found someone else to do the fight that wasn't probably short notice because it was 8 weeks out. It might have been 10 weeks. It was like it was a good chunk of time. Um, and it probably would have went to another UFC contract guy because that's enough time to get ready for a fight. But because I was like, no, I'm good. And like by the time of the fight was going, I mean I was good, and then the second injury happened, and I was like, just thinking, dang God, like I thought I was good. I thought you were telling me like like when I was praying, I swear everything in my being was like, take the fight, take the fight, take the fight. I felt like God was really talking to me. And I thought he was talking to me because he wanted me to fight, but it turns out he was talking to me because he wanted Taco to be the person to go fight. And then he won that fight, won the next fight, won, and then on his third fight with the UFC, 3 wins. He's doing really great. It makes me go like, man, I need to get on things over here because in May it'll be 2 years because of really two kind of significant injuries that happened back to back. I like rehabbed one and then was getting back to this one, and then all of a sudden hurt my other. It was the opposite leg, and I was like, dang it. Well, right back to the drawing board, start rehabbing this one, and pretty healthy now though. So we'll see when they call me.
Shortly after the Taco victory, you got that shot to fight in the UFC. Do you remember where you were at when you got the phone call that you were being signed?
So actually, I fought Taco in. So yeah, I think I fought Taco 2018. Then I did a title fight on the regional scene after that against another guy who was on the UFC's radar, and he was 7-0, 7 knockouts. And then it's funny actually because we have this triangle. The guy that I knocked out and beat. Uh, Also, he knocked out Jalen Turner, and then Turner beat me. So we had this kind of like triangle thing going on. Like I lost to Jalen, Jalen lost to him, and then now I beat that dude. So it was kind of funny. Um, but beating that guy, especially because at this point Jalen, I think he was on the UFC's radar too. So when I beat the guy that beat him, it was like the UFC was all like, okay, like all right, let's look at. And then they actually called me, like a month or two after that fight, and they were trying to get me to fight Gilbert Burns. They wanted me to fight Gilbert Burns at 155, but it was the day after I had shoulder surgery, and my coach hits me up and goes, "I got good news and bad news. What do you want to hear?" I'm like, "This bad news," and he's like, "Well, the bad news is you had shoulder surgery yesterday." And after I'm like, "Well, yeah, like obviously. Well, what's the good news?" And he's like, "Well, the good news is the UFC wants wants to sign you to a contract." And after I'm like, "Oh wow." Well, that sucks. So then, so I had to tell him no because I wasn't ready because I just fresh after surgery, and then went through the rehabs for that, and then my coach just did a really good job of staying in their ear and letting them know how ready I was and wasn't, and then they end up hitting me up right after I kind of got cleared, and for being able to fight, and I hadn't trained in like a minute, but then they gave me. I think they called me Tuesday morning at like 4 a.m. and said, be in Vegas by noon if you want to fight on Saturday. So then just jumped in the car and drove down there.
What was it like coming into the UFC, during the time 2020, after the world shutting down from COVID, UFC, one of the only shows, still keep going, keep going. What was it like in that time frame to fight and have to deal with all the quarantining and all the testing and all that stuff?
Yeah, the quarantining was kind of crazy. Like we're just all in there, but it was also kind of cool because you're just kind of hanging out with your coaches and stuff like that. And at least I'd like to think that everyone has a pretty good relationship with their coaches, but who knows? Like but my coaches, we're all like best friends, so we're just kind of having a sleepover. We're just messing around, joking, um, just hanging out together, and that was really fun. But as far as like what I thought going into it, I was just happy to have a fight, man. I was because the last fight I had before that was 2018, so I was really thinking like, all right, man, I squandered my opportunity. The UFC is gonna want me to go prove myself or something first before because it's been too long. They're gonna want me to go like on another little win streak or something like that, and then we'll see from there. Hopefully they come back and they want me still. So I was already mentally prepared to have to go and win like two or three more before the UFC wanted me back. But you know, God's plan. God was like, "No, nah, Gabe, you're gonna be in right now. We'll call you. We'll give you a shot." And even though I lost that one, I guess I impressed them a little bit, kept me around. Won the next one, won the one after that, lost them after that. But we're still here, so God's got my back or something.
I think another cool connection I just made, you mentioned earlier about originally you were supposed to fight Gilbert Burns. When you made your debut, you took on Daniel Rodriguez, who was headlining that one. It was Gilbert Burns and Tyron Woodley.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a lot of like little things like that too. I think on one of the first cards I fought too was um one of like that card in general. There's just like a lot of guys that went on to do really great things. Like that that whole COVID era where people were just coming in and getting signed, like a lot of those guys just kind of stick around and are doing really good things. I'm like, that's why I'm like, man, I'm kind of lagging. I think God's keeping me in the back. So I'm about to spring. Hopefully, I'm about to spring forward right now, just because all those like little injuries that have just been happening. Hopefully, God's finally letting me put my foot on the gas this year, and I've been trying to do so much better as far as taking care of my body and everything like that, because I don't want to be sidelined anymore because of injuries that are probably happening because I'm just overtraining and doing way too much. Like the amount of rest that professional fighter at the highest like caliber needs is a whole bunch, because we push real hard, but just you can't just push real hard and that's it. If you're redlining an engine the whole time, it's gonna blow. So it took me a second to understand that lesson, but now I'm like, all right, let me pull off the gas and let my body heal every once in a while to make sure I can keep on doing this.
Throughout your time in mixed martial arts, the UFC included, I mean, you fought some very, very top big name guys. Obviously, Jalen Turner back in the Bellator days. You beat Phil Rowe. You took on Ian Gary, Brian Battle. Looking at it, obviously not all those went your way, but just to kind of keep you on track, knowing you're at the right place, you're doing the right thing when you have guys like that you're fighting.
Oh yeah, for sure. When you look at the guys that I beat, and even the guys I've lost to, like I was saying earlier, my coach never, even before the UFC, my coach never really gave me any easy fights. He was like, "No, we're gonna get you ready. We want you to go to the top, so we're getting you ready right now." And I fought some tough guys in the regional scene, and then that got me ready for these moments. And then even like those guys I lost to, like my last two, I lost to Battle and Gary, and I think both of those guys, I could totally win those fights if we rematch. I think uh, I lost that day, but it wasn't like because they just like outshined me or squashed me, and there was nothing I could do. Like a Battle, I kind of got caught and like that, but even then, like I got caught because I made uh, I basically hit the Holloway point in the middle and just throw "let's fight in a phone booth" in the first like 10 seconds of the fight. And that's never a smart move to do in the first place. But like I think I was real focused on just not so much winning fights before. I was kind of more focused on just fighting and not caring what happens. And I'm like, you know what? That doesn't make any sense. I need to go. Yes, I need to be entertaining. Being entertaining is very important. But I still should think of it as an event I'm trying to win, and not just trying to go out there and let some fists fly and just see what happens. I train my butt off. I have a lot of skills that haven't been on display, like even to the slightest. Like the me that everyone has seen inside the UFC is only a very small fraction of what I'm actually capable of. And yeah, especially having this time off in the last couple of years with these injuries, I've been like, you know what? I should totally use every skill at my disposal instead of just kind of letting things fly and be like, all right, let's see who's the toughest.
You obviously touched upon battling the injuries and recovering over the past couple of years. You feel like you might be back in there sometime this year?
That's the plan, man. I hope I really wanted to fight last year. I was stoked. I got married. I found out my wife was pregnant right after that, and I was like, hey, life's coming fast. I need some money, man. I haven't fought in a second. Let's get the ball rolling. And then the injury happened, and I was just like, man, that sucked. But I was hoping to get, even though the card was in late April, I was still gonna try to get like 3 that year. I wanted to be active, and I wanted to go get it. Um, I know we've told the UFC, like we'll let us know. I'm actively training, and kind of back to. I took a little break when my after my baby was born on Black Friday, because we got her half off. So I took a little break from training right there, and then soon as we kind of life reset and we kind of got the bearing, because it's our first baby, so we kind of got our bearings down and stuff like that. When I got back into the gym, I told them all right, I'm headed back to the gym. So, we'll be ready when you call us. And so now we're just waiting.
Is it kind of crazy when you look back at the career, man? I mean, you're at a point, you've made it to the UFC, you fought household names, maybe you haven't achieved the ultimate goal quite yet, but you have accomplished probably more than what 90 to 95% of people who set out to do this do. Is it crazy now to even look back and be like, we're not over yet, but look where we've come and look what we've done?
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. I've done some pretty cool things, like I do have those moments where I remember and I'm proud of myself. But I try to think, there's a whole bunch more to come that I'm focused on too. Like when, especially being a SoCal kid, and I drive by the Forum or something, I'm like, oh, I choked someone out there, I knocked someone out of, or I drive by the Honda Center, I knocked someone out over there. That's pretty cool, and it's like a big old arena, and you're just driving, passing on the freeway, you keep on driving, and that's not a lot, what a lot of people can say. If I'm in Vegas, and I'm driving past T-Mobile, I'm like, man, I fought there. That's pretty cool. So it is some cool stuff. I've done some cool things, but yeah, I'm excited to see what else my life has up for me. But I will say, crazy enough, that last year, when I got married, and I found out that my wife was pregnant, and then had the child. It was crazy, crazy, crazy year. And although fighting was not in it at all, it was probably my favorite year that I've ever like just existed in. It was an eye-opening experience, and it showed me that fighting, although it is a big part of my life, there's so much more to life than just fighting, for sure. And it's funny. I've just recently came across a Bible verse that I've read the Bible a few times, and there's this Bible verse in Deuteronomy, and it says that in the first year of life, or the first year of marriage between a man and his wife, he shouldn't go to war. And after I was like, oh, there it is right there. That's why I got hurt. The God just didn't want me to fight. He didn't want me to go to war. He didn't want me to go to war the first year. I'm over here praying for His will to be done in my life, and it says it right there. I was like, my bad, God. I didn't. I guess I didn't never. I just didn't realize that was part of the plan. So, But then our anniversary was February 29th, which doesn't technically exist this year. So hopefully God isn't just like, well, it technically isn't your anniversary. So I mean, hopefully He just gives me the pass, and is like, all right, technically it's been the whole year, and now you can fight. So yeah, as I'm praying God's will be done in my life, and hopefully that means I get to fight this year. But at the end of the day, I'm just chilling, waiting for him just to do whatever he has in my life, and I'm ready for that. I am busting my butt off all the time. I'm training, like I said, trying to stay restful, not get injured, and just be ready.
At this point in the career, what's the ultimate goal?
I mean, ideally, just go be a champion, man. I'm going back down to 150. All my fights before, not all of them, but the vast majority of fights before the UFC were at 155. Uh, It is a cut. It's not a huge cut, but I have to cut at 170. I don't have to cut anything. I show up basically on weight. I cut maybe, and this is me going to buffets multiple times a week. I have to cut like 3 pounds, maybe, where I'm force feeding myself to fight at 170. And, like I can still win at 170, but everyone's just way bigger than me, and I'm making my life a lot harder than it needs to be. Um, so I think I talked it over with my coach, and we were talking about it before I had the two fights in a row that I lost. But losing both of them, I was just like, you know what? Maybe I should go down to 55. Like I wouldn't have to fight so risky if I'm fighting guys that are my size. And my coach is like I've been trying to tell you, Gabe. I'm just hard headed sometimes, and like I was winning. I beat good guys at 170, or I did well in the fights that I lost at 170. So it's kind of like, it's not that I can't compete at 170. It's just realistically, I'm a 55er who just didn't want to cut. And so now I'm like, all right, I'll just cut. So now I'm looking forward to being back fighting guys that are actually my my size.
Awesome. Before I let you go here, I wanted to give you some quick predictions on some big fights that are coming up. See who you're thinking are going to win. So, big Miami card in the here very near future here. Michael Chandler taking on Paddy Pimblett. Who pulls the dub there?
You know what? Patty does this thing where he just wins when I don't think he's going to. I like so. I think Chandler's gonna win. I think Chandler should win. But if Patty wins, I'm just gonna be like, there's just Patty doing what Patty does. I like when I'm looking at it, I'm just like, yeah, no, Chandler should beat this guy. But you can almost just like can't count Patty out because like I mean I thought Bobby was gonna beat him, and then he like shot into a double while he was falling down, and then Patty locked up that thing, and I was just like, wow, I just didn't expect that to happen, and yeah, Patty just be winning sometimes.
Diego Lopez or Alex Volkanovski?
Ooh, because like both of them really had like when Volk was in that choke against Ortega
Ortega.
and stuff, and like just like he had that dog in him, but it seems like the dog has kind of like I don't know, like his mental is where he's at mentally might be a little on the fritz, like needing a fight and stuff like that. Those remarks, and as opposed to Diego, he's just like it seems like he's out for blood. So for purely mental, I'm going Diego Lopez. I think skill for skill, I don't know, but like if you're taking in the mental aspect of it, I'm going towards Diego for sure.
Jack Della or Bilal Muhammad?
I'm but who's Bilal fighting again? What's the name?
Jack Della Maddalena.
It's fighting Bilal? Really? I didn't
Yeah.
even know that one.
Yeah, it just got announced 2 or 3 weeks ago.
I mean, I'm gonna go Bilal, man. People count him out too, even though he's champion and he does great things. He's kind of like the little engine that could. He just stays right there and just grinds you down. And he's training with some good guys, so he's only getting better. So yeah, I'm gonna go Bilal.
All right, last one here. Sean O'Malley or Marab?
Oh, at number two, Rab's gas tank is almost inhuman. Like I have a pretty good gas tank, but that guy's on like jet fuel or something. I'm gonna go Marab. I know that O'Malley is probably going to. I mean, he's a smart fighter and he has a good like group with him, so they're probably gonna game plan for something similar. For Marab to fight, pretty similarly and just kind of stay on his because Marab did a great like fight in like never kind of standing still and never giving O'Malley that because he likes to snipe, so he never was a target to hit. He was just kind of moving, never really planted his feet. And then when he did, it was like him shooting in and being on the legs and disrupting him so that he had to grapple and not be able to strike in the first place, which is where he was really dangerous. Um, so I can kind of see Marab doing the exact same thing. It's going to be interesting to see what O'Malley does to stop him from doing that in the first place. Uh, but it's very possible O'Malley wins because when he lands that one shot, all he really needs to do is land that one shot. So it's going to be, can Marab make him like ineffective for those 25 minutes and like not slip up that one time. It's like, but I mean, because all O'Malley has to do is land that one. Like when he landed that teep, and it almost like it hurt him. It hurt him bad, and that was just a teep to the stomach. Like that one's. It could go both ways, but I'm leaning towards Marab just being super extra on his p's and q's and just never planting. It's not going to be very entertaining, probably, in like grab striking exchanges or anything like that. But I think Marab's going to do what he did again.
All right, Gabe. Last question for you, my friend. So we still got about 9.5 more months left here of 2025. In a perfect world, how does this year play out for you?
I want at least 2 fights. I'd love 3 fights. And all of them with wins would be pretty sick, you know. And then just slowly making that march up the 55 division. I'd love to at least break in the top 15 by the end of the year's over. We'll see. You know, at the end of the day, God knows, I'm just gonna be here trying to do my best.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, Gabe, man, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed talking with you, man, and hope to see you back out there very soon.
Appreciate you. Yeah, thank you for reaching out. Anytime you want to do this, just send me a DM and we'll make it happen, man. God bless.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. That's it for us today. I'm Carl Peruzza. He is the gifted one. He is Mr. Gabe Green. He's going to be hopefully fighting this year. Check him out. Take it
Amen.
easy, fans.
Later.